Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization, and I have the top 10 best ways for you to make sure you stick to your diet. Now, we have another video later with the other top 10, 11 through 20 anyway, of tips, so please stay tuned for that one. But here's the thing. This video assumes that you either want to start a diet or you already have, maybe you've done a few. And it's not going to tell you how to build a diet specifically. You could probably surmise it from here. We have loads of other videos on that. We have the RP Diet Coach app, which for like 15 bucks a month can build you a diet exactly to your specifications, keep you on track, remind you about meals, all that good stuff. This video here is for that extra layer of knowledge that typically only coaches have. It is the knowledge of, on the mathematics and application of how to build a diet. You could do it a bunch of different ways. Of how to execute a diet, you could do a bunch of different ways. Of how to execute your lifestyle, there's technically a lot of correct answers. But some of those correct answers apply less often than others. And if you just do a random effective diet, it could be ineffective for you. The way you apply it could be ineffective. So just like, let's say you're in some kind of real life version of a first-person shooter game where you shoot demons and the guns are all laid out. Which gun do you pick? All the guns shoot bullets, so there's no wrong answer. But depending on the mission and the level and kind of weird snake demon with dildos coming out of his head that you find, one of the weapons may be much more appropriate than the other, and you wouldn't really know which one was good unless you had played the game a few times. Or the game of dieting, so to speak. Myself and our team of coaches here at RP have played hundreds of thousands of times, and we found out a ton of stuff that works and a ton of stuff that doesn't work as well. So I'm here to give you that inside scoop. So if you yourself are embarking on a fat loss diet, if you have clients that embark on fat loss diets all the time, or you're about to start coaching your clients, there are really good ways to do things, and there are other ways to do things that are totally fine, may not work out as well, and we have to be wary of them. So these tips are going to try to keep you more on the straight and narrow, increase your probability of success. That's it. That's all it is. There are 10 of them, so there's a lot to dig in. First, you want to choose the right size for your deficit. And that means how many calories are you going to remove from your regular diet in order to lose the amount of fat that you want. Now, if you just took one pass at this question intellectually, you could say well, I want to lose a lot of fat, so what's the most I could safely do? There is a number for that for every individual. A little trial and error will figure that out. But the thing is, what is safe isn't really sustainable. And you want to be able to sustain your efforts through the entire course of the diet to actually reach your goal. For example, it is actually a true statement that with the security protocols they have in place, going to Navy SEAL tryouts, as long as your doctor approves that you're healthy, is actually pretty safe. You're not going to die, but is it sustainable? By definition, for almost everyone, it's the opposite of sustainable. You might not last a few minutes, never mind a few hours or days or the whole selection course. So you don't just want to pick a calorie number randomly out of the hat. Too much is too much and you'll fall off the wagon. On the other hand, you could say, okay, hey, listen, okay, I heard you. I'm going to pick a very small deficit to go real slow and steady. And at first, that looks like a good idea. It really does. A small deficit is easy to pull off. You won't be unsuccessful with it in the straightforward way of just burning out. But research shows people get less success with a very small deficit because they reach the following problem. Week after week after week, they look at their body, they try to note how they feel, they see how their clothes fit, and not much is changing. I mean, technically you're losing 1/3 of a pound a week or something. You barely feel it in the diet, fatigue-wise, you're not super hungry. But how are you supposed to motivate yourself if kind of nothing's happening, right? You know, imagine going on a road trip somewhere. Like you got a crazy, death metal / punk / electronic music concert in Chicago, and you're leaving from Indianapolis. What is that, like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour car ride? Let's call it 2 hours. Well, you thought it was 2 hours, so you're pumped with your friends. Let's go. You're in the car, woo, putting whatever demonic music on the stereo that you listen to. And then one of your friends is driving at 10 miles an hour. And you go, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, well, want to be safe. Want to make sure we get there, right, fellas? Safety first. Don't want to burn out the car, or don't want to get us hurt in an accident. You're like, right, good thinking, good idea. Now that trip is going to take 2 days. About 6 hours into the trip, most of the people in the car are like, fuck that, get me out. I'm just going to walk home because my house is right there. We haven't gone nowhere. So slow diets, in much the same way, tend to burn people out because they don't show them anything their motivation can clasp onto. Which is why a good start for most people is somewhere in the middle between really way too fast and really way too slow, because both things exist. What that means practically is a deficit of you trying to lose something like 0.5% to 1% of your current body weight per week, which means if we think about this, let's say you weigh 200 pounds. And that means that if you lose it 0.5% per week, that's 1 pound per week. That roughly corresponds to a 500 calorie deficit from your current diet. 500 calories missing in some form of exercise increase, activity increase, and usually mostly food reduction. On the other hand, if you're on the top end, you're going to lose about 2 pounds a week. And that means you are going to be at 1% of weekly weight loss goal. And that's roughly around, if you do the math, 1,000 calorie per day deficit. 1,000 calories per day. So if you're eating 3,000 calories normally to maintain your weight at 200 pounds, you could be eating 2,500 calories potentially, or even 2,000 calories potentially in order to get to your goal. Both are totally fine answers, and there's a lot of wiggle room. The wiggle room is something you decide when you're actually doing it. And what you want to do is get a combination of two things. One, sustainability. You got to feel pretty energetic, pretty good, no crazy sleep loss, no crazy cravings, at least in the beginning. And two, you got to be like, wow, I feel like I'm eating less food. I feel a little lighter day to day. And after 1, 2, and 3 weeks, the weight is steadily going down as predicted. As long as you can check both boxes, generally speaking, you're really good to go. Next, tip number 2 is to make sure you're doing a good job balancing your activity / cardio and your food intake. Because it's very easy to look at deficit and think, okay, I'll just cut all my food down by 500 calories and then hit that. I won't change my activity at all. It's also easy to think the other way around, where you say, okay, I'm going to exercise for 500 more calories per day. I'm going to change nothing about how I eat, and that's going to be totally fine too. And again, just like I said at the beginning of this video, technically on paper, without exposure to the real world, both of those are valid options. There's nothing wrong with them on paper, and which is a lot of why people who start and do diets and then don't have a lot of success or any success with the process, they don't lose the weight that they want, they end up thinking, well, I fucking cut the calories like the stupid textbook told me to. But the stupid textbook you might not be reading the right textbook, and it might not be telling you everything about what you need to know about balancing that 2-factor equation. There is a better way to do it, and here it is. First, find yourself a level of physical activity that is sustainable. Ideally, something a little bit higher than what you're used to. A lot of times, step trackers can do a real good job with this, where you look at your step tracker, you also have one on your cell phone, and if you're walking about 7,000 or 8,000 steps a day, you think, oh, okay, that's nice. Let me bump it up to a minimum of 10K steps per day. If you wanted to do a ton of cardio, you could, but that takes up a ton of time and it generates a ton of fatigue. And cardio is really hard for how not many calories it burns. So what you just want to do is do a little bit more activity than usual, but not a ton more. Maybe 10 to 12K steps a day. That's number one. The next thing is to go on the internet and find out how many more calories per day at my body weight is this increase in activity burning. And that's usually something like 100 to 200 calories, nothing crazy. Then you see, okay, I wanted to get to 500 calorie deficit. I'm already burning 150 extra from physical activity. That means I need 350 extra calories to take out from food. That's it. So that's not that hard. Once you find that out, you can go and plug and play, and then you have found the balance. That balance may change in the future. You made your initial cut like this, yes. But let's say you get tired, you get hungry, and later in the diet, you may have to cut your calories again. If you're cutting calories again, you go through the same formula, but you now do a little value judgment before you execute it. For example, let's say it's been 6 weeks since you made your first deficit, and now your weight loss is plateauing a little, and you want to keep it on track. You want to keep it under the trend line in your RP Diet Coach diet app. And the diet app says, hey, you got to cut your calories by like this much. And you're like, okay, I accept your advice. And it goes, okay, here you go. Before you hit that calorie cut number, because it's going to give you an option to cut a little bit of calories, cut a medium amount, or cut a large amount. It'll cue you in on which one it thinks you should do. Ask yourself the following question. Ideally, can I go with more physical activity or less food? In other words, which one will piss me off the least? Which one is going to pull me closer to my limit, right? So imagine being in a crazy Indiana Jones style, like Northern African desert prison. Two types of prison. In one prison, they work you to death, to the ground. 12 hours of physical labor or else a dude whips you every single day. But when you go back to your jail cell, they feed you all the food you want. It might not be tasty, but it's all the food you can eat. No big deal. The other prison style is you don't really do much. You actually just sit around. There's like a lounge area, sort of. It's not super comfortable. There's tables and chairs, and you're there with other prisoners. You can chat. No crazy violence. All the other prisoners are also good guys like you, just in an adventure gone wrong. And there's no work, right? But they just straight up barely feed you at all. There's almost no food. You get fed just enough to like keep your eyes open. So you're hungry all the time, miserable all the time. If you were in that first prison, the one where they worked you to the bone but gave you as much food as possible, if the prison guard came up to you and he's like, look, there's finally, United Nations got to know about us. We got to do prison reforms. I know it sounds crazy, Indiana Jones. Do you want more food? Because they said, look, something we're treating you with is bad. Or do you guys want to work less? You'd be like, oh, holy shit, of course work less. Fuck this 12-hour workday shit. This is crazy. But if you were working barely at all and they came in and said, hey, do you want to work a little bit more and get more food? Or do you want us to cut your food even more, but you don't have to work anymore? You'd be like, are you crazy? We don't have anything to do. I would love to do 4 hours a day of some kind of work that we get like double the food. And the prison guard's like, okay, great. We'll do it. So if you're on a fat loss diet, you could be in a situation where it's like, I don't care, even preference. Then you choose to cut a little bit of calories, increase a little bit of cardio. If you're like, I'm super, super tired, I can't move around anymore, but I'm actually eating quite a bit, cut mostly food or all food, don't cut any calories, don't put any calories in for cardio. And the last one, of course, is obvious. You're starving to death, but like, you're not really moving around that much. Your daily activity is still at 7,000 or 8,000 steps. You're just like, fuck it, I'll cut my food, but now you're starving. Adding pretty much all of the deficit in through more cardio is great because you've got plenty of time to move around, plenty of energy. You're just not going to want to touch your food because you're already starving. That's how to adjust that on the fly. Point number 3, it's probably a good idea to eat enough of each macronutrient. People always want a shortcut. and they always want to cut some shit out because that's magically going to let them have this super effective diet. We already know not to cut out protein or not to reduce protein. Protein is what saves your muscle on your body, and pretty much everyone is trying to get lean without getting any less muscular. Protein's out of the way. But a lot of times people say, hey, listen, I need tons of carbs for energy and for my sport, but what are fats? Fats are useless macronutrient that fit people don't even need to eat. Low-fat diet, fat-free diet, like back in the 80s. It turns out that messes with your hormones, it messes with your hunger signaling, and then you just end up having low energy, zero sex drive or pretty close, a really bad time. It's tough to recover for your lifting and your physical activity. You're really, really low on energy. You're super dragging. Your cravings for higher fat foods are insane. And you're like, okay, maybe I made a mistake. Wait, I'll fix it. I'll go keto. I'm going to drop my carbs to almost zero and raise my fats. Well, goodbye fat cravings. You got all the fat you wanted. But now your workout energy sucks because you don't have any carbs. Your workout to workout recovery sucks because you don't have any glycogen. Your day-to-day, at least for a little while, mental space isn't going to be that great because your brain prefers glucose on which to run, and your daily energy just isn't going to be as good. So our recommendation here is, at least to start with, eat enough protein, eat at least 0.3 grams of fat for every pound body weight you have. So for example, if you're 200 pounds, that's 60 grams of fat per day. I wouldn't go below that. You can even go above that. And then generate your calorie deficit, subtract out the carbs, and see how many carbs you get. It'll probably be plenty of carbs as long as your deficit's not completely insane. That way you're checking the box for all three of your macros, and you're not needlessly putting one off to the pasture where at some point you're going to want to have access to its benefits, but you don't. Your body does not do super well with extremes. It doesn't do super well with you taking out a bunch of necessities. It does better if you turn down each bar of macronutrient rather than eliminate one altogether. Number 4. Number 4 is one about which most people actually don't know. And that makes it a little bit curious. Here's the deal. There is actually quite a bit of research on this, and the research is as follows. If you eat the same macronutrients every single day, thus the same calories, and you have the same calorie deficit, you can actually see detectable differences in how healthy and how lean and how energetic your diet makes you, depending on which schedule of meals that you use. And the big thing here is similarity. It seems like human bodies prefer something like 4 to 6 meals a day, not something like 1 to 8 meals a day. And if you're going to have 1 meal a day, every day should be 1 meal pretty much. If you're going to have 8 meals a day, which would be insanely inconvenient, every day should have 8 meals. But the similarity is the big part. Let's say you have 4 meals a day. Is it okay that some days you have 3 meals? Totally. Is it okay that someday you have 5 meals? Totally. Is it okay if you have some days 1, some days 4, some days 8? It's okay, but it's not nearly as good. Your body thrives on regularity. In addition to this, you want similar meal times every single day. Some days you have breakfast at 9 a.m., some days you have it at 8 a.m. But not very often do you have breakfast at 8 a.m. one day and then you wait until 2 p.m. to eat the next day. So meal timing isn't ultra important, but if you stick to a very similar timing schedule through the day, you're going to have much better results, well, by a small margin anyway, and one that counts, than if you just do random sporadic shit. And you also want to have similar macro spreads throughout the day, which means generally, if you train in the morning, keep training in the morning most days of the week. I wouldn't train in the morning and then train at night, train in the morning, train at night. Sometimes, look, your schedule just demands that you do, and that's totally cool. But a lot of times, it's a really good idea to stay as stable as you can. And because your training schedule will be what it be, protein spread evenly throughout the day anyway, in your roughly evenly spread meals at roughly the same times. But you also want to make sure that you're having more carbohydrates around your training window and fewer after. Or if your training's later, fewer carbohydrates earlier in the day and then more after. Whatever your meals are, make sure each meal split macros-wise is roughly the same or at least similar. So for example, if you typically have your breakfast at 8 or 9 or 10 a.m., close enough, your breakfast, let's say, typically has 50 grams of carbs in it and whatever, 50 protein and 20 fat. That means that the next day your breakfast could have 30 grams of carbs. The day after that, your breakfast could have 70 grams of carbs, and that's all winners. But it's probably not great, or rather ideal, for you to have one day breakfast 0 carb, the next day breakfast 130 grams of carbs, the next day 60, and so on and so forth. All this sporadic nonsense. Regularity is a big deal that most people just don't know about. It's a big deal because of habits that stick in, and then your day becomes kind of a part of who you are, and it's easier. But it also seems to make sense, at least from the literature, based on some kind of signaling and molecular and hormonal stuff, such that like actually eating on a regular basis, day after day after day, similar meal times, similar meal amounts, similar meal macros, gets you going in a way that just smooths out the entire process, which is probably what you're interested in, and probably what your clients are interested in if you're helping people out with clients. This seems to push back a little bit, and it does, on the idea that about 10 years ago in the fitness industry, maybe a little bit before that, it was kind of first popularized that macros are everything. If it fits your macros was born. And if your daily macros were what they were, you're going to get very good results. So that's still true, but you can get better results with meal timing. So a lot of people will say, well, as long as I get in all my calories and macros throughout the day, I'm good. And that's totally true. But if you get them in relatively evenly with even scheduling, you'll just be more successful, lose more fat, have more energy, have better health outcomes if you have regular meal timing than if you don't, by a small margin, but an effective one. So something like I know it's starting to sound like a sales pitch. We did think of the science when we made the app, and when we update the app, the RP Diet Coach app gives you regular meal times with meal reminders and a way in which you can make your meals very similar throughout the whole week. It helps you plan your workouts. There are other, because it's a diet planner, it's a diet coach, very different. There are other fitness and diet trackers that will essentially give you like a bucket for a day of food and say, oh, eat this anytime. And they're not bad, but they're not quite as good as giving you specifics and keeping you on a schedule of regular intake, which is the big deal here. Next, number 5, way that you can be more successful in your fat loss diet is to learn to bulk meal prep. The alternative is to essentially what I call spot cooking everything. On the spot, it's 1 p.m., time for lunch. My RP Diet Coach app says lunch, eat your lunch. Oh, there's the macros. I go to the kitchen, I look at the fridge, I look at the eggs, I look at the cheese, I look at the turkey, and I go, okay, it's time to cook. And I fire up the grill or the griddle or whatever I need to and get the blender going, and I make myself a meal. And listen, that's like fitness culture 101. Like the way I got introduced to fitness was like some late night commercial with a guy in leotards was like turning on a blender. Some reason he was in leotards. The Tony the Gazelle guy. Do you remember that guy, Scott the video guy? The Gazelle machine guy. That's right. The hat and the leotard on at all times. Yes.
Yes, of course.
He's the man. So cooking a meal fresh and having it there with all your great macros, there is not a thing in the world wrong with it at all. But on day 2, on day 27, on day 67 of your diet, cooking every single meal from scratch is just a lot of work. Now, if you're there for it, psychologically, fucking awesome. Enjoy. Mr. Chef, Mrs. Chef, that's you. The folks that diet the most, which is competitive bodybuilders by definition, because they diet cyclically as part of their competition prep every single time, and the diet really is the prep, they have found that if you cook a whole bunch of a few different kinds of meats, whole bunch of a few different kinds of grains, whole bunch of just a few different kinds of veggies, which is really easy to do on like a Sunday in like a 2 to 4 hour period at home, you make all that stuff in bulk, you measure out the meals that you can have and plan that each meal, like every day you have 4 meals, maybe one of them is a protein shake at night or some Greek yogurt. You're not going to like put that in a Tupperware container. You can make that on the spot easy. And it's like fun to make it in the evening and put a few little nuts in there and stuff like that. That's totally cool. But 3 of those daily meals you are going to have in Tupperware by the end of that Sunday, actually within like 2 to 4 hours. It doesn't take all day. And you're going to have them in a combination of the freezer and the fridge so that your whole week, all of your meals are there. That gives us 2 incredible advantages. One is over the course of the week, that saves you, I don't know, 10 hours maybe? 10 hours of your time back to do anything you want with it. And when you're on a hard fat loss diet, that's a lot of time you want back. Like there's all kinds of other stuff in your life that's now more difficult to do because your brain only works halfway because you're starving all the time. I'm kidding, but you guys get the idea. Isn't it great that when you're doing something difficult like a fat loss diet that requires a lot of your cognitive bandwidth, that you can free up 10 hours of the day with bulk meal prep? Yes. That's number one thing it gives you is time. Number two, it takes you away from the kind of decision fatigue, or rather decision opportunity, that can make you falter. Okay? Imagine you told yourself, I'm not gonna jack off to porn for the next 12 weeks. You want some of the Josh Hartnett 2003 type of shit. What's that movie called? Scott's Video Guy? 40 Days, 40 Nights? Yeah. That movie was cool. 40, I think. Yeah. Anyway, Josh Hartnett was dreamy. In any case, you say, I'm not gonna do it. No more porn. Hey, sweet. Kudos to you. And every single time that you start your computer, you have a porn pop-up and a work pop-up. Be like, hey, do you want to jack off to this porn? Look at all this porn. Or do you want to do work? Man, that's a tough way to set up your startup screen on your computer. You're making life very difficult for yourself. It's similar to the way that when you walk into your refrigerator or to your kitchen and you don't have a meal prepped yet, shit, there's options. And some of them are ones you said you wouldn't do. When you're making a meal and you're hungry for that meal, it's tempting to be like, okay, I'm hungry. The boss has been fucking riding me at work. Not literally, it's why you get the porn. And I need this. I need just a few more carbs for myself. Why am I saying this ridiculous that I'm saying this? It should happen all the fucking time. You guys probably know in the comments, you can tell me how often you've seen it happen to yourself or to others. Like, extra bagel, that's okay. But if you have your meal pre-prepped, that's like coming to work. You can't even access porn on your computer, and your work is preloaded for you. You open up your computer, it's your work from yesterday. You just get right back in. You just walk into the fridge, get the Tupperware out, you go, I don't want to do this, I want to eat pizza, but fuck, it's already here. Microwave, 3 minutes, out, spoon, done. Meal eaten. And then once that meal has been eaten and you're washing your Tupperware, you think, wow, I'm not even hungry anymore, I'm not craving anymore, that meal hit the spot, and thank God that that meal was already pre-prepped. What kind of fucking genius did this? Oh wait, I did last Sunday. Huge advantage of bulk meal prep. And I think a lot of people think bulk meal prep is scary. Like, oh my God, like I'm one of these bodybuilder people now. I do bulk prep. My friends are gonna come over, they'll be like, what's all this Tupperware? Yeah, you need new friends. I'm kidding. It's just not that hard. It's just really, really basic stuff to give yourself the advantage, plain and simple. Next, within the context of bulk meal prep, or if you wanna cook some of your own meals, at least some of the time and maybe all the time for whatever reason, on a fat loss diet, it is a huge wholehearted recommendation of mine for you to try to, at least to some extent, avoid elaborate menu items. Again, we come to the following. On your fat loss plan, life is harder. It's like living in a world with 1.5 times normal Earth gravity. Someone's like, hey, can you get the remote? And you're like, but it's over there. That's a whole 3 pieces of furniture away. Are you crazy? What if the remote just came to you? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be great if the remote was closer? In a similar way, when you are doing a really tough fat loss diet, and listen, if you push a fat loss diet enough, challenge yourself, at least at the end, they all get tough. If you have a Sunday meal prep and you have to cook some food, and the meal prep now takes 5, 6, 7 hours because you decided to meal prep yourself 3 different kinds of meals a day. One of the meals, it's the regular Tupperware, but then it's got like the little pull-out mini internal Tupperware that's got little cayenne pepper in it because you don't want to mix the pepper with the noodles. It's better if you just put it on there when the meal starts after the microwave. I've seen people do all this shit. And listen, If you have time for it and the bandwidth, great. Do the complex meal prep, have a bunch of different ingredients. But when you're in a tough spot, and you will be in a fat loss diet, give yourself all the advantages. The advantages come when you have a meal prep that's got like 2 or 3 different kinds of proteins, 2 or 3 different kinds of carbs, shit, even one works, 2 or 3 different kinds of veggies. You pour them into the little places in the Tupperware, measure it all out, boom, you're done. That gives you 2 advantages. One we already mentioned is just the reduction in bandwidth, because shit is hard enough as it is in a fat loss phase. The other thing is this: when you're in a fat loss phase, especially towards the end of it, you're gonna get hungry, you're gonna get cravey. And you want your food, your meals, to knock out your hunger, to buy you, honestly, another 4 hours of fucking sanity so you can do your work, hang out with your kids, take the dog on a walk, drive to the store, and not be thinking about like, how many granola bars could I eat if I wasn't on my diet? A big tall glass of milk, probably 100, I'd probably die. I just blow up like a seagull who's eating an Alka-Seltz. If you're free from those thoughts, your meals are winning. And if your meals are ultra nuanced, ultra well prepared, ultra elaborate, ultra delicious, you're gonna really crave your meals, which an hour before your meal, it's all you're gonna think about. And then you're gonna eat your meal, you're gonna enjoy the living shit out of it. And then afterwards, about a half an hour later, you're gonna be like, God damn it, I want another one of those meals, man. And you look at your clock, you're like, oh, only 3.5 hours till my next meal, 3.5 hours of existential dread. If you make your meals just decent, you can take the emotionality out of eating for at least the last 4 hard weeks of your diet. And why would you want to take the emotionality out of eating? Because the only eating emotions you get nowadays on the net balance are negative, because you never have enough food. That is the nature of deficit dieting, and you don't feel like you're getting enough food. So the complex menu items take a lot of time to actually prepare, and also they make you cravey, and they make you more likely to just be still fucking hungry and pissed. So stick to the simple stuff, maybe the not world's tastiest Emeril Lagasse type of shit, and then you're gonna be setting yourself up for a higher probability of success. Flat out. Number 7, food on the run. I highly recommend to you to either have in your home or office or wherever you find yourself, Uber that you're driving, or know of where to get quick, realistically, 3 sources of lean proteins, 3 sources, or at least 1 or 2 of healthy carbs, and a few sources of healthy fats to build a meal with the good macros that you want in it, that your RP Diet Coach app says, hey, eat at 12 p.m. If you can't make it to a Tupperware meal, or you're not in a position that day to even have the Tupperware around you, it's important to know where to get meals on the go. This is a practiced skill that you're going to get better at over time. But if you've got kind of like a quick draw solution, then you're going to be way more successful, because when you walk into a gas station and you're 30 minutes late for your RP Diet Coach meal number 3 of the day, if you just straight up have no idea what you're supposed to eat, you've never done this before, fuck man, that's that whole porn analogy again. The gas station's full of delicious things. There's bear claws, there's those stuffed honey cinnamon buns, there's more bear claws of a different flavor. And all of a sudden, like, you're like, ah, well, I need food and fuck this diet and shazam, I'm eating junk. Or you eat something that kind of has some protein, but not enough. If you go to the gas station before then, 20 minutes before your meal, or even at the beginning of the diet, or even before you start a diet, you can sort of get into the gas station around your work and kind of look at what they have. You can know in advance a few items you can get. For example, they might have some muscle milk protein shakes. They might have some really lean jerky, turkey jerky or beef jerky that you can eat. They might have some really good macros protein bars that are just hanging around. They might also have a few different types of fruit, or some of those healthy granola bars with mostly just slow digesting carbs and not a whole lot else. And they might have various flavors of nuts that are salted or unsalted or semi-salted, and then you can just pick from that, and that's literally like a meal builder at a gas station. If you work from home, or if you're at home a lot, or if you're in your Uber that you drive a lot, you can have those types of things at your disposal so that you have are ready to go, and it's so easy to have like 2 or 3 meals at any point in your fridge or around the house, anything. So even if you don't have meals prepped that day, easy on the go, food on the run stuff is no big deal. If you work in an office, You can have, if you have like an office fridge, you can just show up that morning and be like, okay, we got clients in 20 minutes coming in for a deal. Fuck, I didn't bring my food. That's okay. I'm going to run downstairs to the deli they got. I'm going to buy a few exact items like this. And then when we free up with the clients after the meeting, I'm going to boom, 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 eat, and then write up the whole proposal. Awesome. It's the food on the run gives you the ability that if you're off track, off schedule, off whatever, out of your element, you don't have your meals, there's no need to panic and there's no need to eat a whole 5 bags of chips, which for some reason people do. We'll get into that later when they freak out. Point number 8, tip number 8, be ready at the restaurant. You guys live in the real world. I don't. I'm actually a large language model. I'm not even Dr. Mike Israetel. Huh? How could you ever tell? Yeah. Maybe in a few years, this will be interestingly dated. Yeah. Good God. In any case, say that again?
I'm already working on replacing.
Scott, the video guy, is replacing me with, I got a lot of samples of stuff I say. So it'll sound eerily like Dr. Mike, but not quite. It'll probably do that really well when I do with my eyes. In any case, here's the deal. You guys are real people. You can't always carve out 12 weeks of fat loss phase, which is like what we recommend in the RP Diet Coach app is like a really good meaty amount of time to diet to really change your body. It's hard to take 12 weeks out of your life and be like, I'm never going to a restaurant in those 12 weeks. You could, people do it, but it's much better that if you get a chance to go to a restaurant, you are prepared. And that means use this crazy thing called the internet. I know it's scary, but give it a chance. And you go to this machine called the Google, and you Google the name of the restaurant that your parents are coming into town and they want to go to a restaurant, and that's the one you and your wife picked to take them out to. And you look at their menu and you think, what on this menu can remotely comport with what my macros are for meal number 5, which is when I'll be eating this meal. It's not that hard. Most restaurants have a really good option, but it's better than that. Most restaurants have an ability for you to call the server, hey you, that's how I treat servers, I'm kidding, and be like, hey, I know you guys have this chicken breast dish with all this other stuff. Is there a way you guys could just get me the chicken breast itself and then just like a bunch of veggies and maybe like a thing, like a cup of rice? Almost everywhere I've ever gone that's remotely, any restaurant above McDonald's ability to customize their menu items, they're like, yeah, sure. And you just say, I'll just pay whatever like for this normal hour, because that saves them a bunch of money on the sauce, on the weird peanuts they put on there for the food decoration. They don't give a fuck. Or they'll be like, well, can we tell you how much this is going to cost? You're like, yeah, sweet. You're like, it's $15. You're like, sounds fine. That way, you're winning at every step of the equation. What you do not want to do is to show up to a restaurant hungry as fuck. Your parents are squawking at you and you're like, oh my fucking God, how long is this dinner? And you look at the menu and there's nothing on there discernible, or the food items aren't even explained. It's like, oh, like it's some kind of artistic name, like churrasco tacos. And you're like, what the fuck is in these? And it's like a hipster place, so you can't even tell what the fuck the ingredients are. You're like, is this like a carb or a fucking herb? Is this a smell or is this a food? What the fuck is going on? We just end up pointing to something that has some delicious food that you might like to eat. Or be like, oh, I'll have what that person's having and it's great. But it's got 1 trillion calories in it because it's not a diet food, because you panicked and you chose wrong. Be ready for the restaurant by Googling in advance, or by knowing that you almost always have the recourse to just order some clean food. And look, people get embarrassed about ordering this kind of stuff. They get embarrassed about asking restaurant employees this. I urge you at home to consider, and please put in the comments below if you have a good guess, why? Why are you embarrassed? Is it 7th grade? Is your dick out again in public? Again? I'm going to call Ronnie's parents for the 5th time this month. No, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Cue that Jurassic Park meme with the fat guy. See? Nobody cares. You just fucking do that and you're good to go. Restaurant win. Okay, if you show up, smells really good in the restaurant, everyone's eating tasty stuff, your parents and your wife have all ordered the really good stuff because they're not on diets, that's it. You're failing because you're ordering the same shit. Oh, somebody got fries? I'll snack on those too. Don't do it. Be prepared. Number 9. Sometimes you're going to plan a fat loss phase and you're going to get into some rough times in your life. You get a phone call. Be like, hey man, you have a long lost brother. Like, oh my God, I can't believe it. They're like, yeah, bad news, he's dead, so come to the funeral. You're like, oh, Jesus Christ. You got to go to a funeral in Arkansas? Really? Arkansas? Fuck, that's like a week of me having to meet new family? Ugh. Look at a dead body? Ugh. Go to a funeral and pretend to cry because I never knew the guy? Ugh. That's a lot of stress. In that week, you could choose to try to stick to your diet. And if you've got a handle on things, I'm not going to kick that dick out of your mouth, so to speak. That's a Martin Lawrence joke. If you want to stick to your diet and you think you got it, hey, listen, amazing. Everyone's clapping for you. But it's totally cool for you to say, look, this week or this 2 weeks, I'm going through a house sale. I'm going through a divorce. I'm divorcing my children. Somebody take them. I don't want them anymore. Any kind of big major life event, super big work trip. Here's an example. Your CEO walks in and he's like, hey, you know that Tokyo account? We're like, yeah, we're never going to get that account. It's like, we just got it, motherfucker. Pack your bags. We're going to Kyoto tonight. We're going to fucking train to Tokyo and we're going to give them the best fucking presentation ever and they're going to sign the fucking contract and we're going to be fucking billionaires. And you're like, but I have my macros. He's going to be like, what? Here's your fucking ticket. See you at the airport. And you're like, shit. Is it a good idea for you to go to Tokyo to make the presentation of your life half delirious on 0 carbs because that just happens to be that week in your diet? No, probably not. The other option isn't no diet, and that's the thing that kills me, and this is tip number 9. When you are off your game knowingly, and it's time for you to take a break from your diet, that means you don't break in half and Cheetos come spilling out and you eat them to try to get them back in your body. It is not a license to eat whatever the fuck you want. It is a license to do one intelligent thing, and that's this. Take your deficit out and return it to maintenance. You're going to eat at maintenance for the entire time that event continues. There's an option in the RP Diet Coach app to manually add a bunch of food to take yourself up roughly to maintenance. It does it all for you, but if you're doing it yourself, it's a very easy calculation. You already know what your maintenance is from before you started the diet, and it's real close to what it was now that you've been doing the diet for a while. Just knock off a couple hundred calories, boom, that's your maintenance. Because if you used to maintain at 3,000 calories, you've been dieting on 2,200 for a few months, your maintenance is like 2,700 or 2,800 calories. Not rocket science. Stick to that maintenance. You're going to have a way easier time sticking to any diet anywhere because maintenance eating isn't that hard. You have tons of fats available now in your diet that you didn't, so you can have normal menu items as long as you up the protein a little bit. You're not under any kind of stress anymore because maintenance is easy. So you can do a great job at the Tokyo conference. You can poke your long lost dead brother's body, whatever it is you're into. And all the while, you are not regressing at all. You're just maintaining. So let's say you had an ultra successful diet and you went from weighing 180 pounds to weighing 168 and you want to get to 165 and it's super close. And then you have to go on this work trip because you closed the whatever account or almost closed. You got to give the presentation of your life. You don't want to come back from Japan, and Japan is like the patron saint of fucking amazing food. You want to come back from there being weighing 178 and you're like, God damn it, I'm glad I'm a millionaire now, but fuck. What you want to do is come back weighing like 169 because of the weird travel bloat. And then 2 days later, you weigh 167. You're like, oh my God, I lost no ground. 0 steps forward, 0 steps back. Fucking amazing. It takes some diligence. And it takes the knowledge that when the diet is too hard to execute, you go to maintenance. You guys ever watch you guys ever watch NASA or Tesla, what's that, SpaceX? Any of those enterprises launch a rocket that's really important into space? When they get a report like, hey, it's going to be bad weather, they're not like, how much does a rocket cost? Like 10 billion. Fuck, launch it anyway. What? But the weather is going to knock it out. And that's 10 billion gone if it's unmanned. And 10 billion and like 5 people's fucking lives gone if it's manned. What the fuck are we doing? They wait. Now, when they wait, as soon as they say, hey guys, launch delayed until we'll take a look tomorrow, 24-hour cycle, launch delayed for now, are the guys who are fueling up the rocket like, woo, fuel everywhere, fuel here, light it, throw it on fire, party, woo, who cares, break open the O-rings? No. Why the fuck would they do that? That would set the launch back even more. They go on maintenance. It's a holding pattern, double check, triple check everything, leave it the fuck alone, go through the whole cycle again, and then we'll take it up tomorrow when the weather might clear, and then we launch. Same idea. You may thought your diet was going to be 12 weeks, but now it's 15 weeks with a 3-week diet break at some point when you had to go to Japan to do your presentation. And during that time, you were on maintenance, which is when you come back, you haven't lost any ground. You finish up the last few weeks, and it's super success instead of just being, hey, my diet's over for now, coming back 10 pounds heavier and being like, God damn it, that was a fun trip, but I really just erased a bunch of progress. That you do not want. Lastly, tip number 10, and then we'll see you guys next time for the rest of these. Again, when I started this conversation with you guys, it was pretty clear that you can do all of these things. None of these are like, don't do this. This is how you diet. This is how you don't. They're options. But some of these options get you into more trouble probabilistically than others. Number 10 is a big deal because here's the thing. If you have junk food at home, if you keep junk food in your home, but you're on a diet and you have been for 6 weeks, look, you live with other people. You probably don't live alone. If you live alone, what's up? Don't be too lonely. I'm saying your boy's always thinking about you. It's weird, but not in a weird way, but in a little bit of a weird way. Like a loving way, but too much loving. Like a girlfriend that hugs you a little bit tighter than you hug her, and you're like, you're great, Susie. In any case, that's how much I love you. That aside, if you're at home alone, let's say there's nobody else involved even, you can eat your clean meal. You can. But you're hungry, and you're tired, and you're pissed, and your diet's almost over anyway, and you got a container of Oreos in there. Who's going to stop you? Nobody, literally. On the other hand, if you're someone who lives with other people, whether those aren't your Oreos, but all you have to do is look up the stairs and be like, hey, Jim. He's like, what? Hey, buddy, how's your day been? What the fuck do you want? Okay. Hey, man, you gonna eat those Oreos? Nah, you're good, man. You can have them. Yes. Oreo time, Oreo time, Oreo time. Step on scale, sadness face. You don't want that. Is it possible for you to just do your own shit, have your own mega swag, just like drake the junk food out of your life and have success? Yes. But if you're trying to give yourself the biggest advantages while you're under the most pressure, it is a very good idea for you to take the junk, as the French say. I'm a native French speaker. Native. I was born in France. And throw it away. Or give it to the children or some shit. Drive it to somebody else's house. Be nice. You're just living your normal best life, and your friend's like, hey, I brought you a bunch of junk food. See you later. Close the door. You're like, holy fuck. All right, fuck Halloween. This is sweet. I don't even have to leave my house. If there's no junk food in the home, when you begin to panic, what the fuck are you going to do? You go, fuck. I got to eat something that's off my diet. I'm starving. Open your shelf. 2-liter container of olive oil. Uncooked eggs in the fridge with milk. Prepped meals. 2-day-old broccoli that's soggy. What you gonna do? Cheat on that? No, you're not. Nobody does that. Nobody drinks oil when they're hungry, unless they're actually starving, which you're not. You're just in a fat loss diet, you fucking pussy. In any case, cheating is still possible. You can physically get out of your seat, start your car, go to the store, buy junk food, have people in the community see you buying junk food. Hey, Bill, I thought you were on a diet. Shut up, Frank. Get out of my face. Okay, buddy. See you next time. Unlikely. There's a lot of steps in which your cognition has to actively deal with the fact that you were doing a thing you told yourself you weren't going to do. When cheating on your diet is just a matter of I'm just going to get the snack. I'm going to eat it. I didn't see anything. It's easier. When cheating is a matter of being like, all right, I'm going to drive to the store to cheat on my diet 11 days before it's supposed to be over and I'm successful. Like, fuck, I'm not going to do that. Plus, when you're dieted that hard, you're so fucking tired. You're like, I'm not going to the store. That would mean I have to get up and pick up my keys. The infinite gravity of how fucking heavy they are at this point in my diet. Fuck that. I'm just going to stay here and watch TV. 11 p.m. hits, your nighttime routine shit starts, and you're like, ate it another day. Sleep. That's it. So no, you don't have to remove all the junk out of your home. And if you have children, please don't, because children probably like a well-balanced diet of some fun snacks. Sorry, dad's on a diet, kids. No more happiness for 12 weeks. That's not cool. But if you can arrange it in some way, especially if you live alone or even if you live with roomies, just arrange your fridge or your little cubby space in some way that doesn't have junk there. And at best case, there's no junk in the house for the next 12 weeks of your diet. And then you can look at your RP Diet Coach app It tells you what to eat the meals. You've already done your bulk meal prep. You eat your prep meals. Everything is happy-ish. And then you get super lean. And then you are successful. And then voila, good things happen. Folks, if you have any questions or comments, please shoot them in below. And I'll see you guys. Scott the Video Guy, what do you think? Next week for another episode? The next 10 videos? Scott the Video Guy is a YouTube thumbnailing and planning genius. So he says we're probably going to space them out. So here's the deal. You guys are going to have to wait. And don't blame me. Blame Scott the Video Guy. There's 1117 Maple Street, Birmingham Heights, California. You look at the 95650. Send him a mail bomb. I'm totally kidding. Is there even really an address? Don't send anybody a mail bomb. What is this, 90s? Anyway, I'll see you guys next time.